And good evening. Welcome to Tutti Tavola. Eco Canada has been working on this series of cooking classes for the promotion of authentic Italian cuisine since last year in April, and we thank you all for your continued support and for joining us tonight. This year, Tutti a Tavola is promoted and financed by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, carried out by Assocamere Estero in collaboration with the Italian Chambers of Commerce abroad to strengthen and to protect the authentic Italian product. Tonight, Chef Roberto Fracchioni, executive chef for over 20 years, professor, food consultant, and Canadian brand ambassador for many Italian products of excellence, will be in conversation with guest chef Emma Pelliccione. Emma will present us two recipes, both of them staples of the traditional Italian cuisine, prepared with authentic and certified products. Roberto will introduce us to balsamic vinegar, grana padano, and above all, the authentic San Marzano tomatoes, which are worth being discussed with particular attention to understand their properties and unique characteristics so that you can identify them when you do your groceries. Executive corporate chef Emma Pelliccione spent the last decade in kitchens and photography studios in Toronto and New York City, working as a pastry chef, food stylist, culinary instructor, and recipe developer. You'll find her most recent work on Genke Overwill's own website and publications. The meals Emma creates are most often an extension of what goes on in her own kitchen. Never too serious, always comforting, colorful, and unique. And Emma is also Genke Overwill's iconic brand of exclusive products, which we will feature this evening. The same product that one of you will win tonight when we will draw a gift basket, compliments of Genke Overwill. Just stay connected from the very beginning to the very end and cross your fingers. Last week, the lucky winners were Dave and Donna, whom we congratulate and thank for following our classes. So I think it's time to start our class now, and I'm so happy to leave the stage to Roberto and Emma and join the class, and thank you again. Thank you. Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Tatiana, thank you.
Hi, Roberto. Thank you, Emma, for joining us. So I leave it up to both of you to do this class. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, this is amazing, Emma. Thanks for doing this. Tuesday night. No,
I'm honored.
No apron for me. This is going to be wonderful. But we got a lot to talk about, and I know this menu is, it's got some time constraints. So how about we'll get started right into the menu, and then during the class, let's just we'll talk about these wonderful Emma products. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm nothing if not ambitious, chef. So we have two recipes today that we're going to talk about. And we're going to start with the Semifreddo that we will make with grana padano cheese and balsamic vinegar IGP. So let's get right into it. I have in front of me grated grana padano cheese on a rubber-lined baking sheet. And I'm going to put this right in the oven because we're going to make grana padano chips. So the oven is at 400. And we're going to leave it in there for about 5 to 7 minutes, really until you start to smell it. It's all going to caramelize and solidify into one giant chip, and then we're going to break it up, and we're going to incorporate it into our semifreddo.
So traditionally, like a semifreddo is a sweet dessert. Now you've taken it and sort of introduced some savory ingredients. Is this something that you like to do with your desserts?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And why grana padano?
Oh, good question, chef. So the reason for this dessert is because I really like to work with whatever produce is in season. And well, right now we're in the middle of summer, but strawberries are gorgeous. So I'm going to try and incorporate them in anything I can. And what I really like about this recipe is the fact that it's a little bit unconventional. You're probably not going to find it in your regular grocery store. And I like the addition of something a little bit salty, something a little bit acidic. We got something sweet and creamy going on. It's a really interesting combination of flavors, and they all balance each other out really nicely.
That's awesome.
The reason I'm using grana padano compared to any other salty cheese is because it is not as salty as other Italian cheeses. I would avoid anything with sheep's milk for this. I mean, unless you're really interested in a punch in the face.
And having more savory than sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So how many times did you experiment with this before you figured out the ratio of cheese?
So I actually like to make different combinations of semifreddo. This one's one of my favorites, but I have my base, which is the cream and egg white mixture.
Okay.
And then you can really add whatever you want to it. The balsamic and the strawberries taste really good together. And then when you add the little salty bite of the cheese, it also adds a few more interesting notes to the party.
Cool. So then the base of the recipe is
really the cream.
The base of the recipe and the technique is your basic semifreddo.
Exactly.
But with the addition of your balsamic vinegar, your grana padano, you just take it to a whole other level.
Other level.
Yeah,
you really want it like this recipe is great because it's super simple to prepare. It's pretty hands off once you get it in the freezer.
Okay.
And with the combination of ingredients, it seems a little bit fancier than it actually is.
You're giving away the secrets of the chefs. You're not supposed to.
But that's the point. That's what we're here for. We want people to cook at home. No offense, chef.
Oh, that's all right. You're right. That is why we're here. Okay. Sorry, I took you away from your recipe there.
It's all good. So now I'm adding 3 tablespoons of sugar. It may seem like a lot to the chopped strawberries. But what this is going to do, it's going to help break down the strawberries so that they don't freeze solid in the freezer.
Okay.
And I'm also going to add a little bit of, it's called Chambord. It's a French liqueur made from blackberries.
Okay. Ooh, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah. You can use whatever you want. If you have, if you were able to get your hands on Italian fragoli, I don't know if you've seen that before. That's a strawberry liqueur.
Not here. I don't think I've seen it at the LCBO.
Yeah, so if anybody can smuggle it back,
let us know.
Yeah.
So then this technique is called maceration, just to put it out there. So I find that's a term that a lot of people get confused by, and it's just basically marinating your strawberries.
Yeah, I'm not smushing it.
Not mushing, but marinating with sugar and alcohol is usually called a maceration. So if you ever see that on a recipe, please don't get scared by it.
It's not muddling like a mojito. Okay, let's get right into this mixture for cream and egg whites here, because it will take a few minutes just to get it going.
Well, we have a quick question from the chat. Can you substitute maple syrup for sugar?
You can, for sure. Like I said, it does seem like a lot right now, but this is really the only sugar, with the exception of 3 more tablespoons in this egg white mixture. I'm going to just turn this on. And if you don't like it super sweet, the balsamic vinegar reduction adds a serious amount of sweetness too.
Okay.
So you should be okay. Like if you're definitely not a sweet person, don't worry about that. But I do recommend that you taste it before, taste it with a little bit of saltiness from the grana padano chips. You should always be tasting everything just to make sure that everything is nice and balanced out.
Okay. So your basic ratio to substitute maple syrup to sugar, I've always found, I'm sure you've done more desserts than I have in your life. I usually do half the volume of maple syrup to sugar, by volume, not by weight. Is that kind of in the ballpark?
Something like that. To be honest, with a recipe like this, I'm always winging it. I'm always you can really only tell by tasting. So
your chef's most important tool.
Yeah.
A little spoon.
Exactly.
And your taste buds.
Taste everything. Taste everything. Okay. So now that my egg whites are a little foamy, now is when I'm going to add a little bit more sugar to turn it into a meringue.
Okay.
And I like to add it now just so that I know we have an initial lift from the egg whites. So I'm not wasting any sugar. And it's gonna dissolve just enough, and then it'll turn nice and glossy. and you're going to keep whipping until you see stiff peaks. So it's going to be like dense. Let's get a bowl ready.
How far were the whites whisked before you incorporated your sugar?
They're foamy, still
Foamy.
liquidy,
Just a foam?
but foamy.
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
Okay.
Amazing.
So, we've got a couple more seconds before we transfer this to a bowl. And so you'll notice that I'm going to use the same mixing bowl for the egg whites, and then I'm going to whip the cream in the same bowl. I do it in this order on purpose because if any of your egg whites touch like the tiniest trace of grease or fat or anything, so for example, if there's a tiny bit of egg yolk in your egg whites, you're not going to get that air, you're not going to get that lift, it's not going to whip. So by putting the egg whites in first, I can actually set this aside while I whip my cream in the same bowl. I won't have to
worry about anything affecting the air in your eggs.
Yes.
Cool. And that in turn affects the overall texture of your semifreddo, right?
Yes. So one moment. We got the cheese ready. Let's have a look. So you can see it's nice and golden brown. I'm going to put that behind me to let it cool.
And I love the way that you said you just leave it in there until you can smell it.
Yeah. Everything is by feeling. Like even though like I'm classically trained, I did all the school, I had all the old French guys, you know, breathing down my neck. This is fun cooking. This isn't work cooking. That's
great.
Yeah.
So DOP, IGP, what would you say if you could have one sentence to tell people about the importance of DOP, IGP? What would you say?
Okay, it's going to be hard to put this into one sentence. But,
okay, 2. You can have 2 or 5, whatever. You're the chef, whatever you want.
So when it comes to DOP, and that stands for Denominazione d'origine protetta, in English, protected designation of origin, and then IGP is protected geographical indication. It really has to do with the idea of not only quality, but authenticity. So what I admire the most about Italians is their level of commitment to making sure that their products are the best of the best. A lot of the recipes, as you probably said in many of your presentations, Chef, they haven't changed in like a millennium.
Yes.
Realistically, right?
Yes, for sure.
And it's so easy to make concessions and to cut corners for the sake of convenience and money, right?
And cost, absolutely cost.
Yeah. Money is usually like, of course, that's like the biggest thing. But then you miss out. You miss out on how amazing a product truly can be. And what DOP does is like it protects a product from becoming mediocre. We're preserving that amazing tradition of production process, of ingredients, of like even final product, you know, like I think that's awesome, and I feel that it deserves to be respected.
Okay, so I'm totally going to use that line if I can. The DOP prevents products from becoming mediocre. I love that. Can I borrow that? Do I need to pay royalties or?
No, not at all. I want, in fact, like share it with the world.
Awesome, I will. That's an important part. I find a lot of people are confused as to why it's important. When you go to a grocery store, there's so many labels. Ooh, look at that.
Yeah, this is a stiff peak right here.
Oh, that's wow.
That's meringue. That's why you need the sugar. Sugar helps with stability.
Would you be able to pull that off by hand with a whisk if someone didn't have a mixer?
If you've got biceps of steel, sure.
Okay, challenge is out there for everyone to make.
Good luck.
Peaks like that with the whisk. So I was saying that DOP, IGP, I find a lot of people are sort of confused as to why it's important. And I think that's a perfect way that you just said it, Emma, that it prevents everything from being mediocre. It's easy to get lost with all the labeling, all the packaging, all the fancy Italian flags and Italian words on packaging, which just confuses people.
100%.
Yeah, so I think it's a wonderful, program that is right across the European Union, and I think that's an important part too. It's not just an Italian designation; it is European Union. An independent association decides whether you get DOP or IGP designation. It just happens that, the Italians have more than any other country. Just saying. I'm just saying. And we're pretty good at soccer too. Anyway,
I was waiting for a comment about soccer.
Okay, so we're at the straining of your cream and cheese stage.
So what I did overnight was I actually kept the rind of the Grana Padano, and I roughly grated some, and I infused it in cream overnight. And this will impart a very subtle, salty, cheesy flavor.
Okay.
That it's not going to overpower the final dish, but it will kind of give your brain a little bit of an indication that okay, this is salty sweet.
And that's 35% cream, right?
Yes, whipping cream.
Whipping cream. Okay.
Yeah, it's 2 cups, approximately 500 ml.
Okay.
And I'm going to whip again.
And then in the fridge overnight.
Yes. I've tried it many different ways. I've tried infusing it over the stove. I've tried sous vide, but in the fridge overnight works just as quickly, and it doesn't alter the chemical makeup of the cream, so that I can, again, get some air into it.
And no special equipment needed.
No, well, like I said, if you're Popeye, you've got biceps of steel, whip to your heart's desire, but ain't nobody got time for that.
Nope.
Okay, so we're coming on to the second last stage here.
Okay.
Earlier, I made a reduction of balsamic vinegar, and it has cooled quite nicely. And so you can see how when I run my finger down the back, you can get a straight line. Well, it tastes so good.
Okay. So I have a question from the population here. If making this type of dish in fall or winter months, would you roast or stew the fruit if you're using pears?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Somebody make that. Yeah. Realistically, what you really want is this cream and egg combination, and you can fold whatever you want into it, as long as you're not folding something really, really wet, and you can kind of maintain the height and the texture of the whipped.
Okay,
product.
So that was my next question. Humidity becomes, or moisture becomes a concern then. So if you roast fruit and there's a lot of liquid in the bottom of your roasting pan, would you strain off that liquid so that you're just using the solid fruit?
Keep a little bit of the liquid. You want to swirl it through the middle, like I'll show you with the strawberry juices here. And then this is the overall texture of the cream. So again, stiff peak.
Okay.
We're just going to fold both of these together.
Okay, so how much, this is another question, how much Grana Padano to infuse the 2 cups of cream?
So what I did was, you can find at the grocery store a 250-gram wedge of Grana Padano. So I grated approximately half into the cream, and then the other half I made my Grana Padano chip.
Okay.
So nothing goes to waste, not even the rind.
Nothing. I remember putting that into my mother putting it into her bolognese sauces.
Yeah.
And as kids, we would sneak into the kitchen when it was stewing and try and steal them from the pot. But we didn't have the fancy plating tongs. We just, reached in with our fingers, and the scorching of your fingers was worth it for that delicious little rind.
For sure. And then as soon as somebody saw you do it, you got the beats.
Yeah. There's a couple wood spoons flying around.
The shoe thrown at you from a mile away. Okay, so I'm just breaking up right now the side here of this giant chip. I'm going to try really hard not to eat all of it before I toss it in.
That was one thing I always found as well in restaurants. It's something that you have to prep and hide so that everybody doesn't snack on it.
My God.
Just prep twice as much as you need.
In my past life, I used to be a pastry chef. When I would toast nuts, I would have to keep them under lock and key. Everyone would dig, by the end of the day, I'd have a quarter of my nuts left.
Well, if I was there, I would absolutely be snatching some of those off the tray. I'm not gonna lie. So another question, sorry, really quick. Should there be any concerns regarding the raw egg whites in the semifreddo?
Not at all. That's an excellent question, though. So since we're adding the sugar, and we're beating the sugar into the egg whites, that actually acts as cooking it. So we're changing the genetic makeup of the egg whites, and it basically ends up cooking it. You don't have to worry.
So
about
it's just
that.
like sort of the ceviche method of cooking protein.
Yeah. And
Cool.
if it does, you know, freak you out a little bit, I would say maybe like you really can't omit the egg whites. Maybe use 1 instead of 3, but you're really okay with the meringue. And then plus there's a little bit of alcohol in the macerated strawberries, so that should kill whatever's left.
Plus the freezing process, if there's any kind of funky bacteria.
Yeah. Like use fresh eggs. Use farm fresh eggs. Okay, so now I'm gonna add a little bit of these ingredients at a time because I don't want to deflate anything.
Okay.
And then we're just gonna swirl in. Like it already looks.
That looks delicious, just like that.
Delicious?
It's like a giant sundae just waiting.
Yeah. And it's not at all what you would expect a sundae to be. Not chocolate sauce. So we're gonna swirl a little bit at a time. The egg whites act as air pockets throughout all of this because they don't freeze completely. So if I were to be making traditional gelato, I'd have to pour the cream mixture into an ice cream maker that churns it so it incorporates air while freezing at the same time.
Okay.
And we're taking a huge shortcut here. And the egg whites are actually providing that service for us. So it's think of it as a cheat code.
Okay, so let's talk quickly about balsamic if you have a second while you're folding so delicately. So aceto balsamico di Modena, IGP, DOP. Tell me the story. Tell me everything.
So our balsamic vinegar of Modena is IGP designated.
Okay.
And so the way I understand the difference between IGP versus DOP, the IGP has a lot more to do with the geographic region where it is produced. Mm-hmm. So DOP refers to the production process as well as the geographic region. But IGP really focuses on the geographic region. So you can really only say something is balsamic vinegar of Modena if it is produced in Modena.
100% in Modena. So yeah, generally with IGP, I mean, this from the discussions I've had and the tours I've had in Modena of vinegar producers, some people aren't able to get the full DOP designation because sometimes the grapes are grown outside of the designated region because, you know, there's only so many grapes, there's only so much land, or the packaging element sometimes is done off property, but the process is always the same. And, and it's very, as you said earlier, very traditional. Oh man, that looks delicious, Emma.
I know, right?
Like
it's not a chocolate sundae, but this is a great way to fool your kids into, you know, getting a little bit more cultured.
No, that's gorgeous. That is gorgeous. To all right. First away.
So we're not going to smush because we want to make sure we preserve as much of that delicate air as possible. And I lined it with some parchment paper. Parchment paper, in my opinion, works the best. You can use plastic too. But I find plastic, when you have to pour the mixture in there, it tends to get all over the place. It doesn't hold its shape.
And it's a little easier to pop out of your form afterwards, correct?
Exactly. You just whoop, and then hopefully the one I made earlier will be frozen enough for me to show you.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's a semifreddo in the freezer 6 hours. Done.
Just like that. And we did that in 15 minutes while we were chatting.
Exactly. See, you guys can do this. It's easy. It's fine. That's why we can do 2 recipes. Okay. On to the next.
So now we're moving on to caponata.
Caponata. So if there are any Sicilians in the audience, look away because I am not Sicilian. I don't have Sicilian grandparents who do this traditionally. This is my version of it. This is the Emma version.
Okay. Well, we're looking forward to it.
Okay. So we're going to start. I have a giant pot in front of me. You're always better off using a bigger pot, in my opinion. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to coat the bottom. Like I know I said, what, 2 tablespoons of grapeseed oil, but let's just, we're going to coat the bottom. Yeah. It's not that bad.
Okay.
Okay. I use grapeseed oil here. We're going to turn this on medium high-ish heat because I want to make sure I get color on my eggplant. So I need a bit of a higher heat.
All right.
Grapeseed oil has a smoke point of about 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and it can withstand a little bit of a higher temperature without going bitter or burning.
Excellent.
So that's why I use grapeseed oil first.
Okay, we have another question about the semifreddo before we move on.
Yeah.
The containers the containers typically used for ice cream, you know, like the quarter pan, sixth pan, ninth pans. Would they be a good vessel to use for a semifreddo?
Yeah, I think so. As long as you can pop it out after. And because what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice it, but you can scoop it if you want. You will get cleaner slices than scoops, though. I will say that. I use a loaf pan. It's like a 9x4.
Okay.
Yeah. So now that our oil is a little bit shiny, well, not quite, I'm going to add my first ingredient. So I'm going to saute or cook all of these ingredients separately. So we have red bell pepper, you know, like the one you find in Nona's garden at the end of the summer. You can use a regular bell pepper, though. I've got a mini eggplant because I couldn't find the big ones at the grocery store. So I used 2 of these, but you can use one big one. And then I've got celery. So all of these items I peeled in advance.
Okay, and you peeled your eggplant as well.
Yeah, I peeled a little bit because I don't know about you, but like the skin on the vegetables gives me a bit of agita.
Yeah.
So
that's very common. Very common. I believe.
Yeah. So I keep a little bit so that everything holds their shape, but and so you got a little bit of the color, but otherwise, yeah, we peel. So we're gonna put the eggplant in first, and we're gonna make sure that we're not crowding the bottom of the pan. That should be enough, because we want all of them to brown quite equally.
Okay.
And then putting them in separate in batches. And the reason I am doing that is because if I were to add everything to this pot all at once, I'm making tomato sauce. Okay, Caponata, again, Sicilians, don't kill me or quote me, is a condiment. Yes, you can, you know, spoon it over pasta or over a really nice piece of fish, but it deserves its own kind of identity. And I think every single ingredient in this should stand out as an individual. And therefore, it's not liquidy, it's chunky, it's not quite spreadable. You know, it's something that you can eat with a fork, not a spoon.
Well, I think that's an important step that a lot of people miss when they make their caponatas.
For sure.
The importance of separating your vegetables so you cook them each independently. Yeah. And when it's done, when you take a forkful, that's what I love about it is you get a forkful or a spoonful. One tastes a little more like eggplant, one tastes a little more like pepper, one tastes a little more like celery. So it's like this constant, it's like cracker, or what is that called? Those candies? Oh, I can't remember. The bits and bites where each handful is a little bit different. That was their slogan. So yeah, I think, and it's wonderful to see you do that. I think that's the right way to do it. So it's great to see. Beautiful.
Yeah, so I believe, honestly, in really cooking with love. Cooking with love means effort. Okay, it means taking that extra step, even though it's kind of tedious. You know, you got to put the time in, and you'll see that in your final result for sure. Yes. Okay, so while this is going, I have a separate pot of water here that I'm going to add the celery. Okay. I'm not going to put the celery in the oil because if I were to do that, they would get really hard.
Okay.
And I want to make sure that you know, I don't like ruin the texture. So if I boil them, they will soften. They will stay a really nice shade of green because aesthetics are a thing here.
Okay, so you're
I added salt to both, so always be seasoning.
So your eggplant is getting sautéed, celery is getting boiled, simmered, poached, whatever term you want to use, and then your peppers are going into the pot with sautéed.
Not yet. I'm gonna remove these when they're nice and brown, and then I'll add the pepper separately.
Cool.
So let's get a bowl ready. So I've got a bowl here that I lined with paper towel, and I've got slotted spoon. So once these are nice and brown, I'll take them out.
Okay. So we have a question from Anna. I understand that traditionally eggplant is used. Can zucchini or another vegetable be a substitute if you're not a fan of eggplant?
Thank you for this question, Anna. Of course. Because caponata and many preserves, you know, that are typical of Italian cuisine, they're really just ways to preserve the bounty of whatever your growing season is. So what your growing season is. So if you have a million zucchini in your garden, make a zucchini caponata. If you have carrots, if you've got squash, if you've got different colored peppers, whatever, do it.
So
you can use anything.
caponata sort of refers to the technique as opposed
Yeah.
to the actual hardcore, you know, authentic traditional ingredients.
Yes, there have been conflicting origin stories. Some people say it originated because people would add fish too to preserve the fish, and I think that's actually delicious, whatever white fish was available. And then, or it comes from a particular region in Sicily.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a question about the Emma products available in grocery and Italian specialty stores. Yes.
Yes.
I can say I mean, this has been my tomato of choice for as long as I can remember. They are available most grocery stores. You'll be hard pressed not to find Emma products. In the grocery
especially if it's an Italian grocery store.
For sure.
We're almost there, Chef. We're almost there.
Awesome. I'm excited. I want to see this all come together. So now you do the dance.
Smells great. Yeah. Now, see, it's patience. Like, I want to say, like, a good portion of cooking and being a good cook is step away.
Yes.
You know, let it brown.
This is where you should have a glass of wine to sip on while you're waiting for everything to finish.
Yeah. Once you have all of your prep done, and in the recipe, I call it mise en place, which is preparing all of your ingredients, measuring them out, putting them in little bowls in front of you. Once you have that done, you can actually enjoy the cooking process of this recipe, because realistically, you're just removing things from a pot, and then you're putting it all back in, and then you wait, you have a sip of wine, and it's actually quite nice. Okay, yeah, these are nice and brown now. I'm gonna hold it up. I'm gonna hold it up to the camera so you can really see.
All right.
They smell so good.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
Nice.
Golden brown.
So we have a question about being prepared in advance. Is caponata something you could do in advance and just heat up and serve?
Oh yeah. So we're gonna have so much left over. I gotta put it in jars.
Nice.
Like you can preserve it in a jar, and if you preserve your jar, like if you put the jar under boiling water sealed in a mason jar, this will keep in your pantry for like 6 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the fridge it'll keep for about 2 weeks. Because remember, everything is cooked. We've got no meat in here, nothing crazy perishable.
Okay.
No dairy. So yeah, you can keep this in your fridge. If you add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil to the top of your jar, it'll steal off the contents of the inside. So going with the peppers now.
Here come the peppers.
Yeah. All right.
I love that sound.
I know, it smells divine. So I want to just get a little bit of color on these peppers, because this variety is a little bit thinner than your traditional bell pepper. So I don't have to cook them as long, which is so helpful when I'm on a time crunch. Okay. Season at every step. And then I think our celery is done.
Okay, so that was the other question, is how long do you blanch the celery for?
Approximately, I'm going to say like a 6-minute blanch.
6 minutes blanching, and you're good.
Should be able, you should be able to poke a hole in it with a knife without any issue.
Okay.
So I'm going to do that right now. One moment. I'm going to pick one up for you, and I'll show it to the camera. So you can kind of, I'll put it right, camera 2.
Okay.
You guys see that there? Here, camera 2. So you see the knife kind of can go right through it.
Okay, easily piercing, but you still want a little bit of a...
Yeah, a little bit of bite.
A little bit of bite.
Al dente.
Al dente, perfect.
Okay, we got nice color happening on these peppers.
So your heat is the same for both the eggplant and the peppers?
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I would go a bit higher on the eggplant because they're full of so much water that you risk not getting the sear that you want.
Okay.
So, and then they're also very absorbent. So they're probably going to absorb all the oil right away. So always have your bottle on hand to just add a little bit more as needed.
Now, what about salting your eggplant? I know a lot of chefs cut their eggplant, salt them to extract liquid. Is that something you've done or do?
Not for this recipe in particular, because they're cut in such small cubes. And because I'm frying them in oil and then I season them there, they're absorbing enough of the salt, and they're basically half the size now of what they were originally. So all of that water was removed. It's really only when you want it in an application that you don't want it to be wet. So like eggplant parmigiana.
Okay. All right. So the peppers were not peeled, correct? I
peeled the peppers too, but that's just me being a little bit extra.
A little bit Nona-like, or?
Yeah. Extra, cooking with love.
And you added more oil to the pan before you started cooking your peppers because all the oil from the eggplant was gone, right?
Yeah. So now that the peppers have absorbed most of the oil, I'm going to take everything out, and I don't even have to wipe because there isn't a lot of oil left. So I'm just going to add a little bit of the extra virgin olive oil. I've lowered the heat considerably. And I'm going to saute my onions next. They're already cut for easy prep.
Okay, so regular cooking onions, red onions, what are you using?
Whatever you got.
We're going to see in a second. Why am I asking?
Well, honestly, whatever you got. Whatever's in your giardino. That's the point of this recipe. So we got onions.
And again, olive oil?
Olive oil next time. So I lowered the heat now. And it's like a medium low because I don't want to burn the onions. Okay. We're going to let them sweat a little bit. They don't need that much color because they're going to cook down when I add the tomatoes.
And you don't want the whole thing tasting like fried onions, right?
Exactly. Sweetness. We want to bring out the sweetness.
So have you experimented with other vegetables? Have you done this with zucchini and fennel?
Yes.
And...
Oh, fennel sounds delicious, actually. With like, if you were to replace the fennel with, or to replace the celery with fennel, just be careful though, because fennel can be a little bit overpowering when it's cooked. So you don't want to pair it with anything that you would that could conflict with it. So maybe not the peppers. Okay. You know what I mean?
All right. So if you use fennel, that becomes sort of your focal main vegetable? Yeah,
your main vegetable. You can use the eggplant. Eggplant's really great and it stands up on its own quite nicely. But yeah, I would maybe omit the peppers. Really, it's try it, taste it, go nuts.
You know, we should invite everyone watching to, you know, make a caponata and then FedEx it to us, and then you and I sit down and eat caponata for 6 hours and see. That would be awesome.
I mean, I'm down.
Now, I've seen a lot of caponatas made with capers and anchovies and olives, more like a puttanesca style. I mean, I know how every Sicilian nonna feels about that, but as a more, you know,
not traditional.
Yeah, you know, how would you feel about that? Is that something you would ever do?
I mean, I love anchovies. I think anchovies could belong in anything. I would even add swordfish to something like this, and I've seen recipes where they do that. I love anything salty, briny, and fishy, and it pairs really well with the capers that we're going to add and the olives.
Okay.
I think it would be awesome. But I'm gonna be honest with you, Chef. I think all of whatever people think of as traditional caponata or traditional regional recipes, I don't think there's such thing. Like, Everyone's nonna's got a different recipe.
I agree 100%.
Right?
You could travel through Italy and you could go to the south and go to 50 different people's house for caponata, and you're going to eat 50 different caponatas. And it's confusing, but I think it's also part of the wonderful part of Italian cuisine is not only every province, but every region, every valley, every mountain, every town has its own variations. And you're right. I think it's a wonderful part of Italian cuisine.
And I love how no one can agree. Everyone's mother's is better than the others. And la la la. That makes life interesting. Okay,
It's an excuse to yell. I mean, and that's what you need that.
For sure. So back to the task.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry, I forgot.
So here are the onions. Like as you can see, I'll show you in our camera here. They're not brown, but they've got some color.
Excellent.
And I'm going to add some tomato paste.
Yay. Emma brand tomato paste.
Emma brand tomato paste. Double concentrated. So I've added about 2-ish tablespoons, maybe a little bit more.
Okay.
I really like the convenience of this little squeeze bottle tube thing, because we also carry it like in the can, but this is nice. You can keep it in your fridge, and you can add it to all kinds of recipes.
Cool. So I have a burning question.
Yes.
Not from the panelists, for me.
Okay.
What came first, the brand name or you?
Oh, that's a question that I've been struggling to be comfortable with. So the brand was established in 1998.
Okay.
I was born in 1991. And when my grandfather, Mr. Arturo Pelliccione, started importing Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, at the time in 1998, it was still considered an ethnic product.
Oh yeah, I guess, yeah.
Right? So you kind of needed a brand name for the Canadian consumers to identify with.
Okay.
Because when you think about it, Parmigiano Reggiano is a long name.
For sure. And it's also hard to pronounce. Well, now I think people's tongues have become a little more used to Italian sounding words, but yeah.
But at the time, you know, they needed something that was catchy and short and could be pronounced in every single language. And I was the oldest grandchild. I still am the oldest grandchild. Okay. And they figured, okay, let's call it Emma. And so the original packaging was actually my baby picture.
Really? There has to be some of those kicking around.
Oh no! I hope those are archived and sealed forever. Oh my God.
Wow.
Okay, but yeah.
So you were sort of destined to do this role, weren't you?
I know. It was like subliminally, subconsciously. Like if I had ended up, like, what if I had been an accountant? Oh my God.
Oh geez, they'd be changing the name.
So boring. No offense to any accountants out there. But yeah. Okay. So while we're still on task, I added about 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of the Emma white wine vinegar here. And what the vinegar does, it helps balance out the saltiness of the 2 next ingredients that I'm about to put in. So I've got capers that I've rinsed and drained. Gotta get them out of here. And then I've got our Cerignola olives that I pitted. Excellent. Now again, here's me being extra. I, took the pits out of every single individual olive and I put it back in the jar. But
that's amore. That's amore for your caponata.
We do sell like in a really, they're excellent products. We sell it in a can and it's easy peel and they're already pitted olives. So, if you don't have the time, it's not going to make that big of a difference.
Okay, so we did have a question before that I've been trying to get to because it's the classic question. What wine would you pair with your caponata?
Oh, good question. Okay, so whenever I don't know the answer to that question, I say, whatever grows together, goes together.
Okay.
So wines from the Sicilian region. I would go white, though, rather than red. We're going to add all our vegetables back in. Okay. Something like bright and fun. because this is a very savory recipe. We're gonna add all the ingredients back in.
Okay.
Look at that color combo. So yeah, so something that can withstand the savoriness and maybe cleanse your palate a little bit between bites,
Okay.
so that you can enjoy all of the vegetables separately.
All right.
All right, so last ingredient that we're gonna add now, well, for the little bit, is our DOP San Marzano tomatoes. They're here.
So this is a perfect segue, because this is one of the most important ingredients I think that you're using tonight, and one of the most important ingredients that I get asked about quite often. DOP San Marzano, what does it mean? What makes it special? Why are there so many different ones that are confusing in the grocery store?
Oh, I know. I'm sure, like, even I get confused sometimes.
I think we could spend a whole class just on San Marzanos.
For sure. I mean, San Marzano tomatoes, not only are they a variety of tomato, so it's a type of tomato, just like there's cherry tomato, beefsteak tomato. San Marzano is its own type and variety, but it also only grows in a very specific place at the foot of Mount Vesuvius, right near Naples.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
So like, for example, if you were to take this San Marzano seed and plant it in California, it is San Marzano style, but it is not San Marzano. So yes.
So I think this adds, I think, a lot to the confusion of us Canadians, is that when I make my passata in the fall, I use San Marzanos, but I'm using the San Marzano variety.
Yes.
Which is grown here in Canada, which is not DOP. It cannot be DOP because, again, as we said earlier, it's about the region in which it's actually grown. So I think that adds to the confusion of, San Marzano. And there's also the issue of, I hate to talk about it, but counterfeit San Marzanos.
Yeah, the imposters.
The imposters. It's so sad that there's so much counterfeiting going on with our beautiful products from Italy, but it is something that does happen here.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and like I said, there's different ways to identify what is a real and authentic San Marzano tomato, and so I'll show you quickly on camera 2 here. Or no, we've got a presentation. So there are specific things to look for. So number 1 is the name. If it is in Italian, Pomodoro S. Marzano dell'Agro Sarnese Nocerino, then that's the first step to authenticity. And then you're going to turn it onto its side, and you're going to look at the ingredients. And if it just says San Marzano whole peeled tomatoes and San Marzano tomato puree, then again, you've cleared the next level of authenticity. So if there's citric acid or salt or anything like that, no, don't buy it. Leave it on the shelf. Okay? And then next, you're going to look at the 2 symbols. So the first one on top is the red and the yellow. That is the DOP symbol of the designation. And then right underneath it, you're going to see the symbol from the San Marzano Consortium, which is that governing body that you were talking about earlier, Chef, that regulates the production and the growing process of these tomatoes. And then on the side, you will see a serial number, so you can actually trace the facility where the product was grown and canned and processed.
So accountability, traceability, authenticity, tradition. What about flavor? Why do you use San Marzanos? I'm not going to speak for myself, but you tell me why San Marzanos over others.
Oh, okay. So the thing about San Marzanos is where they're grown. It's like the environmental sweet spot, okay, to get the best out of the tomato. They're sweet and they are juicy. The texture isn't spongy or anything like that. This is like the tomatoiest tomato available.
I like that. I like it when someone makes up words to describe something. Tomatoey-est.
But that's what it is.
Like it's awesome, but it's perfect. It's true. I think it's an important part of people's understanding when you're buying canned tomatoes. They should taste like tomatoes. They shouldn't taste like basil. They shouldn't taste like oregano. They shouldn't taste like garlic. They should taste like tomatoes. That's what I mean. It's the base, and then you add those other flavors after the basil, tomato, oregano, whatever, rosemary, whatever you're using it for. I think that's the beauty of San Marzano, especially Emma San Marzanos, is that they taste like tomatoes. Yeah. It's like picking one off the vine and eating it. That's I'm getting hungry.
And I know some people have, issues with, but if it's in a can, that means it's not fresh. That is incorrect, okay? Especially when it comes to Emma products, because this product is only canned at its peak harvest season. So what happens is they're harvested and then they're peeled and then they're cooked and then they're sealed. So they're in suspended animation until you open the can. So if, let's say you were to buy a tomato, like a fresh tomato in the middle of winter time, where it's certainly not in season here in Canada, you definitely won't get that tomatoey flavor out of your out of season tomato. No, so you're definitely better off using the can.
No, and the other thing with San Marzanos is that they're picked by hand. They're not. Yeah. Each tomato is actually inspected before it's pulled off the vine to make sure that it's super ripe. You can't say that about the tomatoes in the grocery store or the tomatoes, other imposters. So you're buying, like, as you said, tomatoes that are at the peak of their ripeness. Technology has come a very long way. And the way that we can package products now to ship them across the ocean, I don't know. I'm with you, Emma. I would rather have a DOP San Marzano out of a can than a green, I don't know, some other type of nondescript tomato from the grocery store. Yeah,
agreed. Totally agreed. Okay. So back to our caponata. And again, like we said about the tomato-y flavor, it'll kind of hold its own too within this recipe. It's not going to just blend into everybody else.
Okay. So we have a couple quick questions. Oh, wait, sorry. You have to add something?
Well, no, I just want to, I'll show you. I'll show you what I'm working with so far, and then I'll answer the questions at the same time.
All right.
Okay, camera 3.
So that cooked for what, about 10 minutes or so?
Yeah, I want to say, together about 10 minutes.
Okay.
You can read the recipe. Whatever I wrote is what I did.
All right. So we have a question. I find the San Marzano tomato very pulpy, sweet, and almost concentrated. True and intense, but in my opinion, they lack the acidity for a pure tomato sauce. What is the ideal way to cook with them? I have a case. You're a very lucky woman. What's the answer? How would
Caponata?
You like to, you make a caponata?
I know
it balance acidity.
So like for tomato sauce, I don't like to add anything. I like to try and keep it in its purest form possible. But what you can do is add a little bit more salt than you would generally. I find that salt really helps to balance out any over sweetness, over acidity.
Okay.
And it really comes down to flavor preference, because I would not add any like pure acid or even like the opposite, even baking soda or lemon or etc. I would use a tomato that you like. And that's it.
I think that's I would agree with you if you want my 2 cents. I think that's the joy of San Marzanos is, like you said many times, they taste like tomatoes. I believe a lot of people's palates are a little bit skewed to having tomato sauces, like pasta sauces, pizza sauces, especially being more acidic, because that's what they're used to, because that's what they've enjoyed here in Canada.
Exactly.
But not unfortunately, I think a pure straight tomato sweet flavor is preferable for what it's worth. That's just one guy's opinion.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there, Chef.
Cool. Yay, we agree. We're buddies now. Okay. So what were the last couple ingredients you put in there?
So I added, and it's going to sound kind of weird if you're unfamiliar with caponata, almond flour. So it's ground almonds, and that really helps solidify the texture because, like I said, not a sauce. This is a condiment that we're going to spread on bread or just like drown in bread.
Okay. We had a question earlier about. Oh, yeah. Sorry. One more ingredient.
Really quick. I don't want to forget this. So I'm adding about like a tablespoon-ish of sugar because traditional caponata recipes are like a agrodolce, which is like a sweet and sour combination. So we've got the vinegar that we added. We have the brininess of the olives and the capers. So that's adding our agro, our sourness, and then a little bit of sugar balances it all out.
Awesome.
Continue with your question.
I don't remember what it was. It was way back in the chat. I forgot.
They can ask it again.
They can ask again. If I haven't addressed someone's question, they can absolutely ask again, and I will put it out there right now. It was a good question too. Wine we discussed. All right. What can you use in place of almond flour if you're allergic to nuts? Is there another thickening agent you would recommend?
I would say nothing.
Nothing.
Leave it out. Yeah, leave it out. Cook it down a little bit more to let the moisture evaporate. But it's better to remove than to add more in situations like this.
And were your capers in salt or in brine?
They are in brine. So the Emma capers are packed in like a vinegary brine.
Okay. And you rinse them just to extract a little bit more of the acidity of the brine. Yeah.
So I want to control the amount of acidity that I'm adding to this dish, and I do that with the wine vinegar.
Okay. Wonderful. For such a simple dish, you have to think a lot.
You do, but it's a process that is enjoyable, in my opinion. But that's me. That's me. I like to cook. I do it for a living. So.
And I think anyone watching is in the same boat. So we're in good company.
Nice.
Okay. So now that is done. Now what? We have our semifreddo.
So I'm going to let this kind of cook a little bit more. And then I'm going to take the semifreddo out of the freezer. We're going to investigate to see if it's solidified. So I put it in about 3-4 hours ago, and so we're gonna see what it looks like at 3 hours. So let's turn on camera 2 here. All right. So it's pretty solid. Okay, so notice how like it's not coming out. Here's a quick tip. I have a trusty blowtorch.
Nice.
So if you just kind of heat the sides. You could do this with a lighter too if you don't have a blowtorch. Heat the sides a little bit. It should slip out. Okay, moment of truth.
You need a drum roll?
We got it.
Look at that.
All right, so notice how it is more or less solid, right? And I'm going to just dress it directly on this. Okay. So we have our strawberries and our stuff over there. You can grab that. So I'm going to add to the top. And then I'm really just going to use whatever I use inside on top.
Okay. So that's balsamic reduction.
Yeah. Not chocolate sauce.
Better than chocolate sauce.
And then we're going to do strawberries, whatever we've got left. And I've got, because they've been macerating for so long, I got tons of syrup left over. So we're going to add that to the top as well. You know, like you can pretend that this is way fancier than it actually is.
Well, see, that would look beautiful on a platter if you're doing, you know, a family style dinner.
Yeah.
You just carry that out, plop it in the middle of the table, and then cut it at the table. That's gorgeous. I'm totally stealing that, Emma.
Do it. There should be more semifreddo on this planet.
Especially when it's 40 degrees outside.
Yeah. So now I'm finishing off with the chips. I believe in a garnish that makes sense. Okay, so if you're tempted to add something like mint, please refrain. Because even though like a pop of green would be so nice, don't get me wrong, it takes away from whatever's in here already, right?
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that the garnishes complement whatever is inside. And obviously, since we've only added what is inside, we're following the rules. Avoid the non-functional garnish. I call it the NFG. Okay, so now
we're already I don't know, deviating from the classic nonna dressing of the final semifreddo. So don't go too far with mint.
Exactly.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
So it's not quite frozen yet, but you get the idea. It tastes really good.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely not what you would expect in a dessert, but it's quite delightful.
Wow.
Okay, so we have one more chance, or sorry, we have just enough time to show you the final caponata recipe. So I'm going to remove this.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you something I made earlier. So I didn't make the bread that I'm putting down here.
Okay.
I bought it from a very reputable baker at Pane Fresco at Fortino's. They do a great job. And so here's a caponata. So you'll notice how it's like nice and like thick, but then I've got a spot over here. That's like, oh, it's beautiful.
Ooh, that looks so good. Where do you live? I'm on my way.
Woodbridge. I'm at my parents' house. They had the better setup in their kitchen.
I'll go there. It's fine. It's fine.
So yeah, here we go.
I have a comment. Oh, nice. Oh, that's awesome. Sorry, I keep saying awesome, but I can't find other words. Everything looks so great.
I have a little bit more olive oil.
So we have a comment here. Thank you so much. I love this session. So glad Nono guilted you into chef school.
Oh my goodness.
That's from Odette.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was hard work, but so worth it.
I think we're all happy that Nono guilted you into school because yeah, this is great. This was a great class. I learned a lot. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chef. Thank you for talking to me this whole time.
It's great to have you with us, Emma. Thank you so much for joining us. That was great.
Oh, you are more than welcome, everyone.
It was amazing. So
thank you for having me. I am honored.
And thank you, Roberto, as usual.
It was my pleasure.
Insight and all the great information you give us every week on the products we feature. I would like to say a big thank you to Emma and Jenke Overwill for joining us tonight for this class. It was great to do this together. And thank you also to my colleagues behind the scenes who made these classes possible every week, especially Astrid Durzo and Ilaria Venoso, Monica Gammarotta, and Richard Bressan, and Mary Kiriko. And of course, our executive director, Corrado Paina. On the occasion of our 60th anniversary, become a member of the Chamber at a special entry level of $200 and keep us supporting us. See you next week and buona serata. Grazie mille a tutti. Thank you.